We have a trade to talk about. Maybe not anything you've been looking forward to, but we do have a little bit of trade to talk about on today's episode. And then we're going to continue our positional review, looking at the third base position, which may have become locked up after the 2021 season. So we'll be talking about all of that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
Hey, this is Stacey Gotsoulias,
DC Lundberg,
Ryan Finkelstein,
Taylor Blake Ward,
host of Locked On Yankees,
Locked On Mariners,
Locked On Mets,
Locked On Angels,
and you're listening to Locked On Braves.
Locked On Braves,
Locked On Braves,
part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your favorite teams every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShortstopBall. Check out my bio there to see everywhere I am covering the game of baseball, including the Atlanta Braves over at TomahawkTake.com. Also, make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, and make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. Really does help out the show, so appreciate all of the support there. And just as a reminder, we post episodes daily, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and we are free and available on all platforms. On today's episode of Locked On Braves, we're going to be talking about a small trade that the Braves made that hopefully will pay off big, but we'll talk about that, and then we'll continue our positional reviews this offseason, looking at the third base position, which suddenly looks very bright for the Atlanta Braves. We'll be talking about that, Austin Riley's future there, and what's behind him in the system. So talking about all of that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's start with that little trade that the Braves made on Monday. They acquired right-handed pitcher Jay Jackson from the San Francisco Giants for cash considerations and a player to be named later, or additional cash considerations. So again, nothing major here. Braves taking advantage of some of the depth that the Giants have on their pitching staff. And Jay Jackson's been around a long time. He's 34 years old. I guess I shouldn't say that. I'm getting close to that in age myself. So not old by any means, but in baseball terms, he's been around for a little while. Drafted in the 9th round by the Chicago Cubs in 2008 out of Furman University. Over 10 minor league seasons, he has a 4.13 ERA and 912.1 innings pitched with 863 strikeouts and a whip of 1.316. So, not great overall minor league numbers, but been better of recently within the minor leagues at AAA level. In 2021 with AAA Sacramento, the Giants AAA affiliate, he had a 1.29 ERA, 14 innings with 24 strikeouts and a whip of 0.429. So that's obviously a small sample size, but a really good small sample size. And then even in 2019 in the Brewers AAA team, he had a 1.33 ERA in 40 2/3 innings with 54 strikeouts and a whip of 0.934. So obviously has found some things out, and that he has improved tremendously, at least numbers wise, over the last couple of years. He made his big league debut with the Padres back in 2015, had a 6.23 ERA in just 4 1/3 innings with 4 strikeouts. That led to him going to Japan, where he played in their MPP league for 4 years, posting a 2.16 ERA in 183 innings with 204 strikeouts and a whip of 1.126. So very good numbers over there. Has come back to the States, put up really good numbers in the AAA level, which a lot of people say is pretty much equivalent to what Japan's league is over there, and has been pretty successful at the big league level as well, albeit not the numbers we've seen at AAA or even what we saw over in Japan, but he's made some solid improvements at the big league level. He pitched for the Brewers in 2019, had a 4.45 ERA in 30 1/3 innings with 47 strikeouts, so a very good strikeout percentage there, and a whip of 1.319. Bit high for a reliever there. But in 2021 with the Giants, he had a 3.74 ERA in 21 and 2/3 innings with 28 strikeouts and a whip of 1.246. So a little bit better whip there. Strikeout rate still really solid. So he's again made some big improvements. Again, at 34 years old, you never know exactly when somebody's going to find it. But went over to Japan, made some big improvements over there. Has come back, showed it at the AAA level, and he's shown himself to be a solid reliever at the big league level as well. And looking at what Jay Jackson throws, he primarily throws a slider. He throws his slider over 50% of the time. In fact, this past season with the Giants, he threw it 65% of the time. And it's because it's a very good pitch for him. And it sits around 85 miles per hour, has some really good tilt on it, had a 31.1% whiff rate on that pitch in 2021, and batters hit just 220 against his slider this past season. So again, a pitcher throwing 65% of the time, and batters are hitting just 220 against it with a whiff rate over 30%. That's very good metrics right there for Jay Jackson. His other pitch is a four-seamer at around 95 miles per hour, so it can get it up in the mid-90s. Again, that's about a 10-mile-per-hour speed difference right there. It is very big for a pitcher. He had a 26.9% whiff rate on that four-seam fastball, and batters hit just 154 against it in 2021. So, a two-pitch mix and a very good pitch mix at that he's able to locate, has some good break on it, and is able to, get big league hitters out. Now, am I expecting him to become the Braves closer in 2022? Certainly not. But, this is one of those low risk type moves. Somebody that could fill in as a right-handed pitcher in the Braves rotation. We know how much they needed right-handed pitchers in the bullpen last year. Luke Jackson was really the only reliable one. Chris Martin wasn't reliable. Richard Rodriguez didn't work out. So, it's another opportunity for a right-handed reliever to come into the bullpen and, hopefully establish a role in those mid to late innings. I would expect him to be a 6th, 7th inning guy at best for the Braves this year with that two-pitch mix there. But again, a very, very good slider. I could see him, again, being kind of that bridge type guy to the back end of the bullpen. But again, just a low risk move. I mean, it's the off season, so we're gonna talk about it, analyze it. If this happens in the middle of a season, we probably don't even look at it. But since it's the off season, we're dying for something to happen. We're dying for some moves. Definitely going to break down 34-year-old Jay Jackson here, and I do think it has the potential to be a very solid move. The one thing I want to see from Alex Anthopoulos this off season is to try to get the bullpen right from the beginning. And you say that, and really the bullpen he had at the end of 2021 was bullpen he had at the beginning. They just weren't performing like they were capable at the beginning of the year, or really even through most of the year until the postseason. So, but still, you needed that depth. They lacked that depth. Like I said, guys like Chris Martin and others just didn't perform well really all season. They brought in Shane Green, and he couldn't get it done. So, yeah, they really need to look for some guys specifically right-handed to try to fill out the depth of this bullpen. So that's something I want to see Alex kind of focus on this offseason. Try to make sure you got a full, deep roster of solid bullpen arms. And I know that's tough to do, to find, 8 or 9 guys that you can really trust out of the bullpen. Not many teams have that, but I'd like to see a more concerted effort at having that from beginning to end. I think Alex's MO in the past has been to just kind of figure it out, see what kind of bullpen arms they have, and then figure it out and trade for guys and make adjustments. And that's fine. And it's worked for them for sure. But, I'd like to see us not blow those early season April and May games because we just don't have the depth in the bullpen to be able to cover those middle innings. So I would like to see, more of an effort on that in the bullpen this offseason. I think Jay Jackson could certainly be a part of that. Next, we're going to continue our positional review this offseason, looking at the third base position. BetOnline is back and better than ever. A new web interface for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, so continuing our positional reviews, we've already looked at catcher, second base, shortstop, and the outfield. Again, I am glossing over the first base position at the moment, waiting for big news there. So we're going to go with third base. That'll do it for the offensive side of things, and then we'll get into starting pitchers and relief pitchers in a later podcast episode. Also, while I'm teasing future episodes, we did an NL East crossover episode that we already recorded, Thanksgiving edition style. That will be coming out later this week. I'll probably post both of those on Wednesday, so that way you can enjoy your Thursday Thanksgiving and with family and not have to worry about tuning in to Locked On Braves. Unless you're driving to wherever you're going to be going to Thanksgiving, you need something to listen to, then you'll have plenty there to listen to because I'll have both of those uploaded before Thursday. So look out for that. I was actually a little late to the crossover. Time zones really messed me up, so I was late to the crossover episode, but got in there in time for the Thanksgiving draft. You won't want to miss that episode. Really fun doing that with the other host, NL East host there. So be looking out for that on Wednesday. And like I said, when you're driving to your Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday, you can turn us on and listen to Locked On Braves. But again, getting to our positional review at third base, looking at what's there at the present for the Atlanta Braves, it became pretty clear in 2021 that it's going to be Austin Riley. And I laugh because I look back at the beginning of 2021. We still didn't know what we were going to get for Riley. They brought in Jake Lamb to kind of push him and compete for that third base job. He obviously won that job. And again, I just laugh at the thought because, I was even there in spring training thinking, Jake Lamb could be a good kind of compliment for Austin Riley if he doesn't get going, some good depth there. And that was not needed. There was no depth needed. Austin Riley ended up playing 160 games for the Atlanta Braves and doing so at an MVP level. Finished 7th in the NL MVP voting. Probably should have been a little higher than that, but he also split votes with Freddie Freeman and Ozzie Albies. So kind of understanding, again, I said it on a previous podcast that if you didn't watch the Braves, you didn't understand their story and what was going on, then you didn't realize how valuable Austin Riley was to the team and what him having a huge season meant to getting the Braves to. They don't win the NL East, they don't win the World Series without the production they got from Austin Riley. It's not fair to really say you expect that from Freddie Freeman and Ozzie Albies at this point. So, their contributions don't matter as much. But like I said, he was competing with Jake Lamb for the third base job in spring training, and he ends up being an MVP candidate. That's what made him so valuable. I think he should have finished, at least top 5 in the NL MVP, just because, again, that was unexpected production. They were just hoping to get a league average performance out of Austin Riley, and they got an MVP performance. So it was that type of year for Austin. Once again, he slashed 303, 367, 531 with an 898 OPS, 33 home runs, 107 runs batted in, and again, played in 160 games, which was just huge. But let's talk about Austin Riley, on a whole and what we've seen from him so far. Because it wasn't I was going to say it wasn't a great start, but his first month in the big leagues, he was absolutely on fire. But after that, things really cooled off. In his first 2 seasons, he slashed just 232, 288, 448 with a 736 OPS. He did have 26 home runs in 66 games, so the home runs have always been there. But wasn't exactly the level of player we thought he might be or like he was in 2021. In 5 minor league seasons, he slashed 283, 348, 501 with an 849 OPS and 86 home runs in 473 games. Was one of the top prospects in all of baseball. So, that's the type of production Braves fans were hoping for. It's the type of production we thought we were going to get after his first month in the big leagues. And then after that, people had really soured on him, thought maybe he wasn't going to be the third baseman of the future. And then he breaks out in 2021. So, that kind of leads me to the question, because we've seen, 2 years of kind of a struggling Austin Riley. We've seen 1 full year of an MVP level Austin Riley. So who is Austin Riley? What what can we expect going forward from here? Because I've seen a lot of people talking about, give him a contract extension, lock him up. I'd pump the brakes on that just a little bit. I'm not an Austin Riley doubter by any means, and I'm going to give you some statistics and numbers on why that isn't the case. But again, I want to see him. You don't have to duplicate those numbers. I think that's unrealistic to ask of him. But I would like to see him, prove that he can sustain that level of greatness, for a second season. They can follow it up essentially. Because, like I said, we've had a year and a half, a shortened season, and a month or two of his first season of just kind of mediocre Austin Riley, really struggling at times, Austin Riley, and then we saw again an MVP level performance. So where is he? What type of player is Austin Riley? What can we expect from him going forward? To me, that's still a little bit unknown. I feel like he's still going to be a very good player going forward, but I don't know that he's necessarily going to be an MVP player going forward. I don't know that I expect him to hit 300 every year. I certainly don't see that coming from him. But what type of player is he going to be? I think 2022 will go a long way in telling us that. Fangraphs projects him as a 274, 340, 501, 33 home run type player, a 120 WRC plus player, a 3.3 WAR player, an all-star player. And that is kind of what I see Austin Riley as, an all-star player. Again, I don't know that he ever gets to that MVP level again. He'll probably get more MVP votes. I don't know that he'll ever finish in the top 5 of an MVP, but I see him being an all-star caliber player for a long time. I mean, those are very good numbers right there. That's, not anything to scoff at, but like I said, it's kind of unrealistic to expect him to be a 900 OPS, 300, type hitter every year. I don't really think that's where Austin Riley settles. I think he's more of a 275, again, 340, 500 slugging, 850 OPS type guy, type player. And that's very good. So to look at some reasons why Austin Riley's kind of turned things around and hope that will continue, he barreled up a lot of baseballs in 2021. He had a big improvement in his barrel rate from 2020 to 2021. And the biggest thing for me is he stopped chasing as much. His outside the zone swing percentage went from 41.3% in 2019 to 37.1% in 2020, and all the way down to 34.6% in 2021. That's very good improvement year to year. And, it was very noticeable when you watched Austin Riley's at bats this year. He still had some of those at bats where he was just flailing at the slider away at times. But for the majority of the season, you could tell the at bats were much better. He was recognizing those breaking pitches much better. In fact, he hit breaking balls and off speed pitches much better than he hit fastballs in 2021, which is just crazy to think about. Again, he had a higher batting average against those types of pitches than he did fastballs in 2021. And he really struggled against off speed and breaking pitches in his first 2 seasons. So again, that was the biggest, dramatic improvement for me. And you could see it, you could tell it. He just had much better at bats. Again, occasionally, still, he's always going to have a high strikeout rate, somewhere 28%, something like that. That's just part of his game. And he's going to have those at bats every now and then where he's just not picking it up. But you could tell, there was a concerted effort on his part to do a better job seeing those breaking pitches, picking that up, and, laying off those pitches or either recognizing them and hitting those pitches. Like I said, he had a higher batting average on those pitches. So I think he just did a better job of recognizing those breaking balls, off-speed pitches, and that was a big reason for his jump, and it's reason why I think he'll continue to be a good hitter, just the more recognition and play and awareness that he has of those pitches going forward. That's why I think, I think the progression he made in 2021 will definitely stick. While it might not ever be to quite that level again, I think he's going to be an all-star caliber player. And then something that really surprised me is his defense. And I don't look at the metrics. I argue it with Sam Peebles over at tomahawktake.com all the time about, he falls in love with the defensive metrics. I'm not a huge believer in them, so I don't know what his metrics are. I haven't even looked, but again, just watching the game, with my eyes, he improved a ton defensively. He probably won't ever win a Gold Glove over there, but he became a really solid third baseman. Obviously, a lot of the credit there goes to Ron Washington and the work that he puts in with all of his infielders. But I mean, again, just the plays he made over there, the short hops that he's able to pick, the slow rollers and the arm that he displays over there. I mean, it was just night and day, really. I think it helped a lot too. He settled into his natural position. Coming up, they transitioned him into left field. Now he's at his natural position at third base, and he needs to stay there. But he looked really good defensively at third base as well. So that was a huge improvement there. All right, we'll take another break, and we'll come back and talk about the future at third base for the Atlanta Braves. So Riley is the future at third base for the Atlanta Braves, essentially. He's under arbitration control for 4 more years, projected to make $4 million in 2022. Taking into account normal arbitration increases, assuming that Riley's production remains, at around an all-star level, and assuming that the arbitration process stays as it is. That could be a topic of discussion in the upcoming CBA negotiations. So that might change, but as things stand right now, he'll probably make $7 million in 2023, $11 million the following year, and around $14-15 million in his final year of arbitration. So again, that's why I say there's no need to really rush this right now with Austin Riley. They have plenty of years of control left on his contract to kind of let that play out, which is what I would do. Maybe, and he's just 24 years old. That's another, thing to mention. He's still very, very young, and he's going to be at a prime age when he comes out of his arbitration years. Again, it's probably in his best interest to bet on himself. And you're going to come out of arbitration and enter free agency at 28 years old. And, you have finished in the top 10 and MVP voting a couple times. You're going to get a very lucrative deal, a deal that the Braves probably aren't going to give. Now, if he just loves playing in Atlanta, maybe the Braves lock him up through his age 32 season. I think that could be, pretty expensive. We're looking at maybe $20 million a year if he is that all-star caliber player. The Braves have a lot of these good young players like that, and it's going to become really expensive if they lock all of them up long term. But again, you got a player like Austin Riley. Again, if he shows it to you in 2022, and again, he's an all-star player, then maybe next offseason you consider, at least starting talks of locking him up long term. But I wouldn't do that right now. But at least for the next 3 or 4 years, Austin Riley is the third baseman of the Atlanta Braves. You can pencil that in. Behind him, if something went wrong in 2022, next man up would probably be Johan Camargo or Orlando Arcia. One of them would probably fill in at the position. Arcia doesn't have a lot of experience at third base, and when the Brewers tried it, didn't necessarily look great over there. So, Camargo might be the best option there if Camargo's still on the team next year, which I'm kind of guessing that he won't be. Braden Shoemake down in the system. Again, I've talked about Shoemake before. We talked about the shortstop position. I think he's more of a, utility type player, not an everyday type player, but he does have the arm strength, the size to play third base. I think he could certainly do it. Vaughn Grissom, a little bit younger prospect. A lot of people project to be a third baseman. Luke Waddell could play the position, recent draftee. And then Ambarios Tavares. So a lot of same names I talked about at the shortstop position. I think you could see move over to third base if Tavares grows into his body a little bit and grows into some power. I think a lot of people project him to move to third base. So that's kind of what's down in the system. For me, it's pretty much the same as the shortstop position. There's not much there. The Braves have a lot of work to do in the minor league system, in my opinion, to kind of build up that depth, because there's really not much behind any of their infielders right now. So again, Austin Riley is your third baseman of the present and the future for the Atlanta Braves, and that's a good spot to be in as a Braves fan right now. Well, that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Follow me at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.